Alright guys, welcome back to another video. As usual, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new here, you like what you see, or if you've been watching for a while and you've been enjoying the videos. Also, make sure to check out my Spotify. Link is in the description if you want to get the audio versions of this show. But let's start off here. Let's talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro, because all signs are pointing to it coming out this year. We have not gotten an official announcement from PlayStation, but I think like there's so many rumors out there and there's so many people talking about this that it's inevitable that the PS5 Pro will be releasing. I'm guessing probably near the end of the year, in the last quarter of 2024, with an announcement coming in the next few months, and they get people prepared for the PlayStation 5 Pro. They show off the specs, they show off what it's going to be able to do, and then they open up those pre-orders. Now, the biggest question here is how much of a jump is the PS5 Pro actually going to be for gamers? Is it going to give that more consistent 60 frames per second for all games, probably at a base of at least 1440p? And is that going to be something that will entice enough people to want to go out and buy a PS5 Pro? I know there have been games that are at 30 frames per second. I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2 looking like it isn't going to be a very steady frame rate on the consoles themselves, but we still have had tons of 60 FPS performing games here that have done very well with the current generation of consoles. And there's a lot of people out there that still think we just really haven't seen what these current generation consoles can actually do. A lot of the tools have not been utilized yet with things like FSR. So I think there's still a lot of stuff to be able to be pulled out of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. But a PS5 Pro looks like it is around the corner. And there are some predictions here from Digital Foundry, basically saying to not expect a deliverance of double FPS over the base model based on the specs alone that have been leaked. And they believe that new upscaling patent that was discovered will be really what PlayStation kind of dives into to give a better experience on the PS5 Pro. So here is what they say. The PS5 Pro performance shouldn't be expected to be double the frame rate in GPU limited scenarios over the base model based on specs alone. They also say that it's difficult to predict as of now based on the rumored specs alone. But in terms of the PlayStation 4 Pro, which we got last generation, there's not actually double the number of CUs with the specs that we are seeing right now for the PS5 Pro. So it isn't as big of a jump. They say the increased clock speeds may not deliver automatically double the frame rate in GPU limited scenarios, also considering how the PS5 Pro CPU is going to be a limiting factor and the VRAM and memory bandwidth staying the same. Any performance improvements over the base model will likely be delivered by the rumored upscaling technology Sony is supposedly developing with AMD. And they say the additional power of the console could also be used to add transformative elements not possible on the base model, such as path tracing. They say, speaking about the rumored upscaling tech and that Sony and AMD are working on for the PS5 Pro and other hardware, Digital Foundry took a good look at the recently discovered patent, attempting to explain how it worked, but not very clear. The patent seems to point at an evolution of checkerboard rendering, which will use an algorithm to determine what parts of the image require upscaling the most. And honestly, this isn't too surprising, because the main thing when you think about a console is they still have to keep it relatively affordable for people to want to go out and buy it. It's never going to be in a price range of a high-end PC. I mean, maybe they shift models at some point in the future and start thinking, hey, we'll just deliver a extremely low-end console and an extremely high-end console and allow people who get the low-end console to upgrade the console with different parts. I mean, that could be kind of cool, basically just making it fully customizable like a PC. But that's not where we are right now. The PS5 Pro is probably going to be in the $500 to $600 range at the very most. So it isn't going to be this just like massive jump to what we have currently right now with the normal PS5. There will be obviously a boost in performance. It will be probably the best console if you want performance only. It's all you care about. That will be the one to get to give you the best performance, as it will be more powerful than the Xbox Series X. But we won't see something like the 4K 60 FPS locked without any hitches or anything like that. Something that these console manufacturers have been promising now for almost 2 generations, almost since at least the Pro consoles was kind of the beginning where they were promising that, and that obviously never reached. And then we saw at the beginning of this generation where 4K 60 was a major promise, and of course it hasn't delivered on that fully throughout this generation. So we'll see what the PS5 Pro does, but it does end up counting on the tools, I think, to make sure that things can get better performance. That is one of the things with the Series X when it did launch, was we saw a lot of the talk about the integration with the RDNA 2 architecture with AMD and the ability to use things like FSR to give better performance for games that would be more demanding on the system itself. And we really have not seen that. FSR 3, I think, got implemented for the first time with the RoboCop game, and I don't think we've seen it anywhere else. And I hope before the end of this generation, we do get some games that are utilizing everything that is available from the Xbox Series X specifically. And it'd be interesting to see how it stacks up against the PS5 Pro, because as of right now, it does not look like Xbox is going to be releasing a Pro console. They're probably just going to wait until the next generation before jumping in to some new hardware. But let's jump over here and let's talk about Battlefield, because Battlefield is one of those first-person shooters that can go head-to-head with Call of Duty. It hasn't over the last couple of releases, but there was a point where it was very close when you had Battlefield versus Call of Duty, and every year that they came out, it was which one were people going to pick up and play. Now I think Call of Duty has really ran away with it, but I think there is a future here where Battlefield can jump back into the ring. It is a very beloved franchise for first-person shooter fans, and they definitely have that ability to have a launch that isn't rocky and give a great product and compete here with Call of Duty. But there is definitely some turmoil going on here, maybe signaling the winding down of Battlefield 2042 before they jump into the next release, as another creative director has left the development of the company, has left EA. So first of all, Marcus Leto left last month, and now Craig Morrison, who joined the Battlefield franchise as creative director in August 2021, and then became the studio creative director in December of 2022, in replacement of Mr. Battlefield Lars Gustafsson, has apparently now left, revealing that on his LinkedIn that he's left the franchise in February of 2024 to join Blue Scarab Entertainment. And they say the move marks the second time a creative director has left the franchise in 2024 alone, which is typically something you would see happen at the end of the project. And this follows all of the employees that EA recently laid off. They laid off 670 employees and then also shut down Ridgeline Games, which was supposed to be the studio that was going to be working on the Battlefield franchise going forward, or at least believe the campaign for the upcoming Battlefield. So that went away. We've also heard the rumblings and rumors about the next Battlefield game, which is apparently based in the current day. So they're probably preparing for that, but all these creative directors leaving may not leave the franchise in a great spot at the moment. We will see what happens here and how Battlefield does evolve. Now, when it comes to Fallout, I know a lot of people want Fallout 5, but I don't think it's going to be very soon. It's going to be a very long time before we actually get Fallout 5, as they just released Starfield, working on Elder Scrolls 6, and now after that, I think is when Fallout is going to happen. We know that Todd Howard has said that, I mean, they've already written it. He knows what's going to be happening in Fallout 5, but there was some confusion here that people thought the upcoming Fallout TV show was actually going to reveal some of the events of Fallout 5, and that looks like it is not the case. So this happened a little bit earlier on Den of Geek, where Todd Howard, Jonathan Nolan, who's a writer, director, and executive producer on the show, and showrunner Graham Wagner explained that the series is an entirely new story set in the Fallout universe. And there was confusion because when discussing the show with Total Film, Nolan has said it's almost like we're Fallout 5. I don't want to sound presumptuous, but it's just a non-interactive version of it, right? So people were thinking, wait, are we going to get the story events for Fallout 5 before the game comes out or something, or just give us information as to what Fallout 5 is going to be based upon? And that's not going to be the case. This is a completely unique story that is different from Fallout 5, and there won't be any spoilers or anything of that within the show. They say here, speaking of the benefits of making an original show in the Fallout universe, he explains, which Nolan explains here, it means you have all of the benefit of beautiful storytelling with that Todd and Bethesda has contributed to, but we also get to tell an original story within the world. As writers and filmmakers, it's just a dream come true, saying, I think we made Fallout 6, which is what Wagner then replied, to which Nolan joked, we know all about Fallout 5, we're not telling anybody, meaning that they know exactly what Fallout 5 is going to be. If anybody is going to try to get some leaks, it could be coming from somebody on the Fallout show, because there's people that probably know everything that Fallout 5 is going to be all about. And in fact, says Howard then clarified these jokes by explaining that he did indeed share some details on the Fallout 5 with the show's creators, if not perhaps the full thing, saying, well, there were some things where I said, don't do this because we are going to do that in Fallout 5. But the show is a completely separate story, and we're not going to have any spoilers for Fallout 5, but I'm kind of excited to see how the show does end up. It does come out on April 11th on Prime. I'm not the best at watching TV shows. I usually end up playing video games over choosing to watch a TV show, but I will definitely be checking out and seeing how this Fallout show does end up. And luckily, nothing is going to be spoiled for any upcoming Fallout games. And who knows, like I said, it's going to be a very long time anyways before we do get Fallout 5. Okay, let's talk some PC, PlayStation, and more games that were previously PlayStation console exclusives coming over to PC. One of those we know is coming is Final Fantasy 16. Now, we don't know the exact date, but I'm guessing it will probably be around the same time frame this year as when the game released last year on PS5. So around the summertime, it released in June on the PS5. I'm guessing they have about a year exclusivity on the PlayStation 5 consoles, and it kind of is pointing more towards that, as Final Fantasy 16, the PC version, is in the final stages of optimization. This was Game Informer speaking with the producer Naoki Yoshida about it in Square Enix's Tokyo, Japan offices, and asked about the PC version for Final Fantasy 16 and in terms of where it is in optimization. Here's what he says. In terms of where we are in development currently, we're trying to figure out the final stages of optimization right now. When we can release the PC version, it might be dependent on that, the system requirements and specifications for PC that players will need. So we're trying to figure that out. Naturally, the PC specifications are looking to be somewhat high. Goes on here, it says, in terms of when it's going to come out or when we can announce it, I'd like to ask for more time on that. And asking about the requirements of who's actually going to be able to play this on PC, says this. And to do that, we're looking to release a demo for the PC version as well. Again, we can't really talk about that too much in terms of details of when it's going to come out. I think in a little bit more time, we'll be in a better place to announce things. But one thing's for sure, it won't be too distant in the future. It won't be a year. It won't be 2 years. It will probably be shorter than that. So stay tuned. So I am guessing that the PC port of Final Fantasy 16 is coming out in the next couple of months, with an announcement coming relatively soon. And hey, there's going to be a demo, so you're going to be able to see kind of how it runs with your setup and your system. And I think there will be a pretty nice boost there in terms of sales with Final Fantasy 16 when it comes to Square Enix, who obviously I think would have been very beneficial for them to actually have released this game day and date, at very least on PC and obviously on Xbox at the same time, day one, to get even more sales. Final Fantasy 16 in the first week, though, it did better than what Final Fantasy VII Rebirth did in Japan, at least. So we'll see what the PC version does in terms of boosting it and how much better, how much it'll run and look, and all of that type of stuff. And it's sticking on PlayStation PC ports. There is this rumor going around here from Silk Knight, who is saying here, I mean, we just saw that Ghost of Tsushima is coming out on PC. I think we're getting the whole slate of PlayStation games coming to PC, so this isn't surprising, but Silk Knight tweets this out. Sony's upcoming PC game is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Its announcement is expected next month. Although the exact date is unknown, there will be a longer than usual period between the announcement date and the release date. So I wouldn't be surprised if this happens, and it's going to happen, I think, regardless if this person actually has the information or is making this up. But The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered looking like it is coming to PC, and we're going to be getting an announcement very soon. We'll be very interested to see how PlayStation fanboys react to this, because they did not react very good to Ghost of Tsushima, especially if you went onto the PlayStation blog and all of the crying that was going on there in social media and stuff. So I feel like Last of Us Part 2 may be another one that does kind of prompt that from their fan base. And speaking on PlayStation. I hope this is true, but it's looking like it may not be true. And it is that more PlayStation 2 games are expected into PlayStation Plus Premium as Sony partners with an emulation company. Now, this is kind of a weird one. Now, I'll just go through it. So, the emulation company is Implicit Conversions, and they're apparently working with Sony to bring PS2 games to PlayStation Plus Premium, but maybe not. I'll get to that further down. It says Implicit Conversions was co-founded by former Ubisoft and Sony employees, the latter of whom also worked on the PS2 emulator PCSX2, which if you've ever emulated PS2 games, I'm sure you've used that. And why this is popping up here as a rumor or as some news is because during an interview with the website Time Extension, they were asking guests about this stuff, and it says Implicit Conversions case is a curious one. The studio's work on PS2 games was thrust into the limelight over the weekend following an interview with Time Extension. The website has since retracted the statement, however, regarding Implicit bringing PS2 games to the PlayStation 5, calling it a mistake and issuing an apology. But then it gets even deeper than that. Redditors found that Implicit's official LinkedIn page, in which the company explicitly stated that it's working with Sony Interactive Entertainment, PlayStation to bring PS1, PS2, and PSP games to the PS4 and the PlayStation 5. So that's a confliction. Now, we don't know why Time Extension removed it from the article, whether it was an honest mistake or whether they were told after the fact, hey, we can't let people know this yet, so please remove it and issue an apology. And on top of that, on their LinkedIn page, they actually changed that message about working with SIE to bring these games over and making it more generic, saying working with clients to bring NES, PS1, PSP, and PS2 games to the PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox. So they changed it just from working on PlayStation games, bringing it over to the PS4 and PS5. But I really hope this does end up coming true, because this, to me, as somebody who loves retro games, somebody who loves older games, and Xbox has done a phenomenal job for their fan base. One of the main things that made me really attracted to Xbox for this generation, even going all the way back to the Xbox One and Xbox One X, is when they brought in that backwards compatibility and they allowed you to play across all the generations of Xbox. On top of that, they actually added upgrades and features to it, so those games would play and just run way better. Like, you go look at some OG Xbox games on your Series X, Series S, Xbox One X. The games look phenomenal with the upscale and the resolution, with the better frame rates, with the auto HDR. Some games have FPS boosts and stuff. Like, it's a really great thing that they did for backwards compatibility. And I was always hoping that PlayStation would do something similar that's just not on the same level. And maybe this is one way that they are going to be able to do that, not only providing access to these older games on your PS5, but then also giving you the additional features with better resolutions and frame rates, which a lot of these emulators actually can do when you are playing these older games. So I hope this is something that they just leaked out accidentally, or it just slipped up, a slip of the tongue that they weren't supposed to put out there, and they have to retract it now because they don't have the official go-ahead from Sony to say it. And then hopefully this actually does end up coming to fruition. All right, let's talk about NVIDIA, because they are being sued for AI, for their AI tech. I mean, this isn't the first time this is happening. We're in a very weird time right now where AI is trying to kind of figure a way out in terms of how can it use the information that is out there in the wild to actually create these AI systems, because it just takes a bunch of information and spits it back out in, I guess, a smarter way. But NVIDIA are being sued here by authors Brian Keene, Abdi Nazemian, and Stuart Anon, who are alleging that one of NVIDIA's large data sets used their books to train Nemo, the company's cloud-based toolkit for creating and customizing large language models. Now, I mean, NVIDIA has become a pretty big force in artificial intelligence across both software and the hardware markets. I mean, the company got pushed up over the $2 trillion market cap over the last month. So NVIDIA obviously is massive. But when it comes to AI and training and copyright, this isn't the first company that has been sued. And I think it brings us into an interesting kind of discussion that will develop going forward in terms of fair use and copyright. Something we see here on YouTube all the time, where you're always seeing these discussions and arguments between creators who really don't know what fair use is, and you're out there, people trying trying to get other videos taken down when clearly the person who used that content was using it within fair use. All of this stuff is all coming in here and creeping up with an AI discussion. As it says here, generative AI products like OpenAI's ChatGPT-3 or Google Bard require a substantial amount of data to train them, which has become a hot subject in copyright law, as many, particularly creative professionals like artists and authors, take legal action for their work being used to train these technologies without their consent. Other AI-related copyright lawsuits include OpenAI, which is being sued by 18 authors, including the Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin for copyright infringement. Both Meta and Microsoft also face legal action in the same realm. The former used copyright books to train its LLMs, while Microsoft and OpenAI are being sued by the New York Times for alleged unauthorized use of published work to train its AI tech. And again, this just brings up copyright law and how is that going to change? Things are obviously going to have to be adjusted with all of this AI stuff popping up and with all of the large language models that will take people's work and then kind of use that to create their AI bots. And yeah, I mean, I'm not that well versed in how all this works, but we will definitely continue to track it and learn about how this whole thing is going to expand, especially what happens with these lawsuits. And finally, to end things off, just two quick things here for Xbox. NBA 2K24 is now part of Xbox Game Pass if you want to go download it and play it. Another nice addition, really adds to that whole repertoire of games within the Game Pass service. You're getting MLB The Show this month. You got NBA in there. You have Madden. You have Angel. You have lots of great sports games within the Xbox Game Pass service. And then also Forza Horizon 6 or Forza Motorsport, not Forza Horizon 6. I guess I'm thinking about the future of the Forza Horizon games, but Forza Motorsport is getting update 6, which has rolled out. And there's a ton of stuff, so you can go and check out everything if you're interested in that. But the main things here that they are improving on in Forza Motorsport, one of the big things is the update is removing the level restrictions on all car parts in the game, which means you will be able to install parts in any car you own regardless of the car level. You will also have the option to use in-game credits to purchase car points at a ratio of 4,500 credits for 500 car points. Turn 10 says this gives you a choice to immediately upgrade your cars using credits, or if you're saving your credits, you can earn car points for upgrades through car leveling as before, which is going to make it easier to unlock some achievements, the bodybuilder and heart transplant achievements. And then they also made some other adjustments here to some tracks like the Daytona track. So lots of stuff, but the main thing here is the level restrictions on all car parts have been removed. But I'm going to end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe. Make sure to check out my Spotify. Link is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
We'll be right back.